Hey everyone, I'm going to present my digital portrait of a multilingual learner today, and I chose Enrique off of the Purdue University website, given that I don't have access to a multilingual learner myself. I could not reach out to the schools I used to go to for various reasons, namely that most of my students were in grade 12 and thus had a little bit harder to get a hold of. Uh, but anyways, had a wonderful time reading over Enrique's profile. He is 16 years old. He's in the 11th grade. He currently lives in a small town in the U.S., small Midwest town where he was born, actually. He did grow up there for the first, I believe it's 8 years of his life. The portfolio says 4, but I am fairly certain it is 8 because he says 8 during his oral presentation. So he moved back to Mexico when he was 8. Had not very much practice with English. Spoke with his siblings almost entirely in Spanish. Didn't really consume very much English media, and then moved back to the U.S. for about 6 months, midway through between now and when he moved back, roughly. And he got to practice a bit, went back, didn't really get to practice English once again, and he's now back in his Midwest town in the U.S. During his schooling in Mexico, he attended a private school, and I believe a lot of the schools in Mexico have a much more open layout than they do in the U.S. And this is something that he seemed to enjoy a lot. He enjoyed the outdoor pathways between classes, and it felt less confined. He says that the schooling in the U.S. feels like he's in jail. He's an avid fan of soccer, namely the Chivas, which translates to the GOATs, the greatest of all time, which I think is really funny. But yeah, he enjoys soccer. He's very close with his extended family, hence the moving a lot, and he gets to see his family from Mexico a lot. And Enrique plans on becoming an engineer and sees his knowledge acquisition of the English language as an asset to his employability. Some academic and linguistic info. Although Enrique took English classes in Mexico, these were bare bones at best. They were they were not very challenging to Enrique. They were pretty basic. He describes it as the equivalent of like getting them to learn to say "hola" in English, and so he would not go to class and he would pass every test. So he required a bit more pushing, and so this contributed to his lack of experience or lack of practice in English. And this is all stuff that we have already discussed. So trying to fit Enrique on the observable language behaviors chart was difficult just because of the sample size that I had, but I did my best. For his listening skills, I put him at a 3. He seems to be able to respond to simple sentences and follow multi-step instructions, and also sort and organize key information in these oral interactions that he has. I deemed early on that Enrique definitely was not in step 2. He seems to make little to no use of Spanish whatsoever when communicating and answering questions with the instructor. He does lack some linguistic complexity, so he's definitely not at or approaching grade level. He uses, for example, covered with a hand gesture to mean, a roof and to mean indoors when talking about comparing the schools in the U.S. to the schools in Mexico and saying that schools are indoors. He uses not outdoors to mean not outside to mean indoors, and he doesn't seem to be able to distinguish between after and before, so tense languages during his oral presentation. Um, Further information is lacking to be able to more confidently put him in step 3, but we will discuss that soon. Moving on to his speaking abilities, Enrique definitely is able to make use of compound sentences in speech. When, for example, when he's describing his move, the move from guided instruction in his teaching in the U.S. versus the more open-ended inquiry-based learning that they would have in Mexico. At least that's inquiry-based is the closest I can come to describing it. He uses the definition of words to replace their meaning, and he does do this a few times. It's like being outside to replace outdoors. It feels like I'm in a jail, and with the hand gestures to replace them saying, he feels caged or trapped. So he's definitely using the definition of words to replace an unknown word at the time. However, placing his use of language strategically to communicate for a variety of purposes is difficult because we don't see him communicate for a variety of purposes. We see him do an oral presentation, we see him discussing with an instructor, but definitely nothing outside of academics or outside of conversation with authority figures, maybe some back and forth with his sister, which only added to it being a little difficult to place him, given that a few times he would get stumped and his sister would jump in for him. So we did get to see him try and paraphrase or muddle through those interactions. So maybe a little less information. Any additional information that could help create a more comprehensive assessment? So this is stuff that we've mentioned. More conversational English, so outside of conversations with instructors. Some individual conversations without his sister. And yeah, I think that should about do it. How can we support Enrique? So this was interesting. I know it's the point of the assignment is to figure out how to support this student. But, there's a variety of pathways and avenues that we've learned throughout the course. I thought making use of translanguaging in particular was what I wanted to focus on. Making use of translanguaging seems to be a good idea with Enrique in particular because Enrique has so much familiarity with Spanish and English and going back and forth, utilizing one year, utilizing one the other. And so making use of his full language repertoire, these are often going to be subject-specific strategies, but things like creating a word wall or allowing Enrique to maybe discuss his readings in English and read his Spanish readings in English or his English readings in Spanish, vice versa, as seen fit. Providing plenty of opportunities for Enrique to paraphrase and justify. Providing Enrique with the opportunity to summarize information, model correct forms of speech. These are all textbook ways to help Enrique just as an English language learner, and incorporating lived experiences, of course. Now, encouraging Enrique to continue his exploration of engineering seems crucial. This is given the fact that Enrique seems so passionate about it, at least through the excerpt that we are given on the Purdue website, and this seems to be a main motivator as to why he would want to learn English. Aside from living in an English-dominated country, he definitely wants to make himself employable and sees it as an asset and would like to continue his learning for this reason. So allowing Enrique to, and encouraging Enrique to pursue his passion, or his interest in engineering, Providing Enrique with outdoor education settings, also great because of this familiarity with it in Mexico. And in the interview, I get the sense that he much prefers outdoor learning as opposed to feeling like, in quote, he's in a jail. Now, providing Enrique with groups to support his interests would also be great. I'm thinking particularly about his interest in soccer, given that he's living in the United States. This might be a little less coverage than he got in Mexico, especially in the media. So encouraging him to participate in groups and social interactions revolving around this seems like a good idea. Further supports for Enrique. So this is mostly regarding the lack of interactions we see him have outside of that with his sister and the instructor. So keeping an ongoing log of his interactions. This doesn't need to be singling him out. Absolutely not. This is just as you pass by, as you're a teacher, you're eavesdropping in conversations, and you can overhear his proficiency in social settings that are non-academic. This would provide great data to be able to revise to better help Enrique. So a chart like the one presented here would be great to gather some more information and to keep track of information about Enrique's Enrique's language knowledge. And thank you for my presentation, for listening to my presentation. And I look forward to watching everyone else's.